Rick, you were inside the courtroom. How was the jury selected, and what can you tell us about the group?
Well, it was an interesting day. You know, we started out with some procedural events, and at one point, the Crown Attorney in this case read out a list of prospective witnesses who could be called, a list of witnesses that included many of the members of the 2018 World Juniors team, players who are still playing in the National Hockey League in the playoffs. You know, Cale Makar was maybe the highest profile name that was mentioned. And then the jury selection began. And about 200 prospective jurors were taken into a room, an empty courtroom, and one by one they were brought into the main courtroom, and they were asked by the judge questions to try to determine whether they had a preconceived bias that would exclude them, from being able to make an impartial decision on this. They were asked questions like whether they had a perspective on hockey players, the behavior of hockey players, whether they themselves or whether anyone they knew had previously been either accused of sexual assault or a victim of sexual assault. And in the end, the jury was decided on, and in an interesting composition, 11 women and 3 men will make up the jury in this case. That's 14 jurors. So if by the end of the case all 14 jurors remain and no one has had to leave because of, you know, a family emergency or an illness, there will be a random draw where 2 jurors would be excluded and 12 jurors would then decide a verdict in the case.
And what comes next here, Rick, in this case? I know you've been following it very closely.
Yeah, well, we're back in court tomorrow morning at 9:30, and we will hear the government, the Crown prosecutor, detail the government's case against these 5 co-defendants, and after that, we'll get right into testimony. So later this week, we'll probably be hearing testimony from EM, the complainant in the case, the person who, went to police and whose identity is protected under this publication ban.